The humidity is back, and so are the risk for thunderstorms and maybe some heavy downpours and severe weather over the next several days. We're going to be talking about that. Some flood watches have gone up in parts of northern New England again. That's not good news. But we'll manage to struggle through it and figure out what's going on tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. And it's good to know that if you need mulch, topsoil, or sand, they got it. And also with hurricane season, the prime time of hurricane season getting closer and closer, start thinking about maybe making sure you have everything you need just in case we get a tropical storm or a hurricane. You can get all those things at Omni. 631-756-1125. The best prices anywhere, and the website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
And, of course, Tempest by WeatherFlow. You can get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and become part of the fastest growing weather network on the planet. The link is about to be pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. And if you use the coupon code Joe and Joe Weather Show on anything you purchase on their website, you get
10% off. And let me tell you, I've heard lots of good things about the Tempest Weather Station. So if you haven't gotten it and you are considering purchasing it, well, just use our names and you can get that 10% off, and you will have the perfect piece of equipment for the next 1,000-year storm that Governor Hochul says it comes now every other year. So
every other week. Speaking of my Tempest weather station by WeatherFlow, my low temperature this morning, would you like to take a guess at what my low temperature was this morning?
Please, 57.
Nope. 54.5. And not only, Joe,
I'll be thinking about you when I'm paying off my electric company bill for the air conditioning that has been going nonstop here. Not so much because of the heat, although today was a hot day, but the humidity as well that we've had, unrelenting. So I'll think about that tonight, Joe, at your 54 degree. You know what you could do at your 54?
Well, get this. 54.5 degrees. It was so cool last night that when I got into my truck this morning to go to the dog park, the tire lights came on telling me that my tire pressure was low.
Oh, because it's been
because of the cold.
Yes.
And it took a while for me driving. I drove to the dog park, drove back from the dog park, which is 10 miles each way. Then I drove back to town, and on that second trip back to town, the light finally went off, and the tire pressure was back to normal. That happened to me a lot during the fall months last year when we, the first nights that we dropped back in October. I had a couple of nights when it got down into the teens here, and my tire pressure wound up being was low. But you drive the car for about 20 minutes or so, and then it just gets back to normal. But I just thought it was funny that should be the case. 54 is cool, but it's not that cool.
Well, when you think about Georgia, the kind of weather that we've had up here the last day or two kind of reminds you of Georgia. But of course, no one thinks about Georgia at 2,200 feet above sea level,
which is where I am.
Which is a significant. You remember from the days of our classes in meteorology, a dry adiabatic, for every 1,000 feet, the temperature goes down 3.5 degrees Fahrenheit. So you're 2,200 feet. So you're probably about 8 degrees lower than sea level. I guess at sea level, it was, even at sea level, it would have been like in the low to mid 60s, which is pretty darn nice for the southeastern states in the month of July.
Yeah, Atlanta, I got to 86 this afternoon here. I don't know what it got to in town, but I got 86 here. I know Atlanta got to 90 And most spots in Georgia were in the upper 80s to around 90. Atlanta's at 800 feet above sea level, so I'm only 1,400 feet higher than
Hi.
they are. But no matter. Okay, so was looking at when I was looking at the models this morning and looking at what was going to go on over the weekend. I, I just kind of gave a raised eyebrow over the fact that uh, these systems that are coming through that are going to each one of them is going to trigger whatever shower and thunderstorm activity it does. But then it had the one for depending on what model you looked at. If the GFS wants to have it come through Saturday night into Sunday morning on some of the runs, and the European is much slower. It has it more during the day, Sunday and Sunday night. But I mean, it wasn't a carbon copy of what just happened, and it was, probably a lower grade, but it does open the door to the possibility of downpours and thunderstorms, and the possibility that there could be some more localized flash flooding. The ground's got to be saturated. I mean, I can't imagine that it's not. So the flood thresholds probably aren't that high.
As I said yesterday, was the ground here was, and this is after almost 9 inches of rain, was a bit too soft for me to use the tractor mower. I didn't attempt it today. I'm hoping that maybe I could do it tomorrow. And if I do it tomorrow, I'm going to be doing it probably before noontime, before the heat of the day settles in, because it really, once you stepped outside after 12 noon today, that, temperature well into the 80s. I'm not sure I don't even know what the high was today. I've been running around, but I'm sure it must have gotten to or maybe even above 90 here. And you can't deal with the humidity, Joe. I mean, that has been the key up here for the last couple of weeks. Has been the long stretch of dew points, generally in the mid to upper 60s to sometimes in the lower 70s. It certainly was over 70 degrees over the weekend when we had those tremendous
Oh,
downpours.
it was low to mid 70s, and those dew points are going to get into the 70s.
90? It was 90.
90. Those dew points are going to get into the 70s on in some places tomorrow, and more widespread Friday, Saturday, and into Sunday. So we're going to have another juiced up atmosphere. It's a matter of what kind of mechanisms that are there aloft. That are they going to set off widespread thunderstorms, or is it going to be more of just the odd clusters or line segments that move on through? And I wouldn't be surprised if there's some severe weather in the mix as well.
No, I wouldn't either. I do have it. I do have in my forecast for the next few days the mention of thunderstorms, and in fact, marginal risk. The SPC folks in one category talking about tomorrow, the potential storms could bring isolated tornadic activity, and then for Friday, the possibility for large hail and all kinds of mayhem. So it's been fun so far the last couple of weeks in the zones of thunderstorms, and I can hardly wait until we get into a drier northwest Louisiana. It'll be interesting tomorrow, Joe. I'm anxiously awaiting tomorrow to see the weekly Climate Prediction Center update on the drought situation. Now,
I was going to ask you about that.
Certainly.
Welcome to everybody on the chat board tonight, and those of you not on the chat board but watching in the background on the Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Wednesday, the 12th of July. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, and this way you will be notified. And make sure your notifications are turned on, and this way you'll know when the Joe and Joe Weather Show is on, which is Monday through Thursday at 7:35. Sundays usually at 11 a.m. Fridays and Saturdays, Joe and I usually take those 2 days off unless there's some apocalypse. But if there should be an apocalypse, we'll let you know and we'll do a show. So meanwhile, the first flood watches are up in upstate New York, north of I-90, and in northeastern New York, and for just about the whole state of Vermont, which shouldn't be a surprise, because even though the waters are receding there from what just happened with the rain, there's still plenty of it. So it would not take much to create some flooding. And I would not be surprised, Joe, if we start to see more flood watches go up. Some of them may be just precautionary, just in case, but others might be in areas where flooding is a greater risk. So I think they're probably going to put some more up before it's all said and done.
It looked like last night that tomorrow night, my area would be in line for maybe anywhere from a half to 1 inch of rain, a dose of heavy precip. But now the models have seemingly backed off a bit on that, thankfully. But regardless, we are still going to be under the gun for showers and scattered thunderstorm activity here. Again, starting from late tomorrow through tomorrow night and right on into Friday and the upcoming weekend as well, and even on into early next week.
Meanwhile, the heat continues across the south. We've got Texas and Oklahoma in the thick of it again with various heat advisories and excessive heat warnings that are up for those two states. Also, some heat advisories in southern Louisiana, parts of Arkansas, Missouri, and Kansas. And there's some flood watches up in central Mississippi that's sort of sandwiched in between those heat advisories. Heat advisories also for South Florida. And for New Mexico, with one county in an excessive heat, and Arizona, Southern California, even up into central and northern California, we've got and Nevada, we've got excessive heat being indicated here, an excessive heat warning that is being indicated. And by the way, those red counties that you see in Nevada and in Utah, those are flash flood warnings that are up.
Yeah.
So that's they're getting pounded with some rain. We've got some severe weather at the moment around the Chicago area. We've got what's left of a tornado watch there. We'll take a look at what SPC has to say momentarily. Meanwhile, on the surface map late this afternoon, as we take a look at 5 o'clock, dew points today weren't terrible. I mean, they were in the they were mostly in the low 60s and even a few upper 50s. It's tomorrow that we're going to start to see these dew points begin to shoot up, and you'll notice that there's this snaky frontal boundary through upstate New York. There's a cold front there, becomes a warm front in Michigan and into northern Illinois, which is why we're seeing the severe weather where we're seeing that in the warm sector. And those frontal boundaries just sort of meander their way through one through the northern plains, one through the central plains, and out in the west, it's just the thermal low in play there, centered on the Nevada-California Arizona border, and that's bringing the winds that are mostly, I'm trying to look at these wind barbs in California, actually they're mostly from the west, but that's not stopping the thermometers from going up. Satellite tonight, there's some shower and thunderstorm activity going on in an east-west band in parts of southern Vermont and New Hampshire, upstate New York, not too far away from you, Mr. Rayo. Although
Yeah.
it does look like those lightning strikes are starting to wane a little bit. And there's also a few in northwest PA. We've got a concentration of storms in Mississippi and Alabama, and also a few cells and lightning strikes showing up in Florida. And you can see what's going on in New Mexico, where we've got some lightning strikes going on there. Not much happening in the west other than blue skies and sunshine and hot temperatures. Here's a close-up view of the northeast satellite loop, and you'll see those lightning strikes. Again, they were more active a couple of hours ago, but now it seems that they're starting to wind down a bit as that cold front that's in upstate New York tries to push southward. It's not going to have a whole lot of success making it, which means we got another hot and humid, and it's going to be humid tomorrow. Those dew points are going to shoot up for sure.
It's never ending. Although we talked about yesterday on the upper air how the winds will be coming more out of a northwesterly direction as we move toward August, and maybe that will hopefully mean drier and less humid weather to come our way. But and we certainly have been dealing with this story for more than a long length of time.
A gorgeous summer day in the middle Atlantic states and southeast with not much, if any, thunderstorm activity going on, except for a little flare up there in South Carolina that you see the strikes come and go very, very quickly. And as we check out the radar tonight, there you can see what's left of cells moving through Massachusetts, North of Route 84, but south of I-90, there's a few downpours and one or two thunderstorms there. There's some showers and maybe a rumble or two of thunder moving east into eastern Pennsylvania. Looks like right along Route 80 and heading out of Scranton and then probably pushing its way a little bit further to the east should it survive. Some more cells in northwest PA heading into north central PA. Northeast Ohio, got a little severe thunderstorm warning there. A couple of tornado warnings have popped up as of 7:51 p.m. Eastern Time in and around Chicago. Actually, three of them have popped up there. Or is that four now? One, two, looks like four tornado warnings that are up in that particular area. We've got a little. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Look at that pair of those deep shades of red, literally sitting on Chicago right now. So I'm wondering what the heck those are doing to the Windy City.
Well, why don't we take a look? Let me get the Chicago radar here. I'll see if I can pull it up from the Weather Service site. Here we go. And all right, we're just gonna wait for this interactive mess to load. And is it going to load? Apparently not. Now, why would you have a radar page where all right, now it says loading map. And oh, here we go. Finally.
David Schwartz says, for current for warnings as per above in Cook County, Illinois, and Chicago.
Well, the Weather Service's radar here is glory, hallelujah. There you go. So on this radar, now I don't know if there's four on my other radar. On this one now there's just two. And it looks like they are to... all right, hold on. I'm just trying to get this, see where this is. This is a god-awful... this is just awful. Hold on. I'm going to go to see if I can find another radar.
Well, let's go back to the plexiglass, and grease pencils.
This one here, let's see, open image in new tab. Let's see what that does for me. Nope, it's going to bring me to that. Oh, here it is. Okay, at least we could see it here. There you go. There's some pretty hefty cells in there that are moving very quickly from west to east, right through Chicago. Looks like one went right through the north side of Chicago and now has moved into Lake Michigan. And you see the tornado warnings that are up there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like there's 5 of them on this one. There's a fresh one that's just come up. So it looks like there's 5 tornado warnings. The furthest two to the west don't have any echoes in there anymore, so I imagine those are going to expire momentarily. But that's a nice little cluster there that's moving right along. And as far as the west is concerned, now why they've got flash, maybe that was a mistake. Let me just see if I'm not good with colors. So there's the dark red. So what is that? Is that excessive heat? Okay, it's not a flash flood. I take it back. It's an excessive heat watch, which means we may have excessive heat and we're going to watch it. It's going to get hot, folks. That's pretty much what those kind of warnings are. It's going to get hot, and it's going to be, a little tough to handle. But anyway, all right, so that takes care of that. Otherwise, the radars are pretty quiet in the west. The Storm Prediction Center has done a little updating here. We've got a small area of enhanced in and around the Chicago area, which we saw play out on the radar. There's another small area of enhanced back in southwestern Missouri and eastern Kansas. Marginal risk in that east-west band that runs through Pennsylvania and upstate New York, which again looks like it may be past peak. Tomorrow, they've updated this, Mr. Rayo. So now they have a marginal risk down to Long Island, southern New Jersey, down through Virginia, the southern Appalachians to about me, and then going west into the southern plains, slight risk in the western plains, slight risk from northeastern Kentucky to northwestern to the state of Vermont. And the tornado risk is 2% in that area of slight risk and 2% also in the western plains. Now for day 3, and this is Friday, And what was interesting to me about Friday, Joe, is the European actually has a fairly active day of showers and thunderstorms on its run today. Marginal risk from central and southern New England across New York City and Long Island, New Jersey, eastern Pennsylvania, down into Virginia. I kind of wonder if we're going to start seeing dew points getting up above 70 on Friday with
Now you know as well as I that
a
they're
slight
going to
risk in there, you think?
with a slight risk, and I'll tell you, I'll go even further than that. As the day progresses on Friday, and as things become more and more hectic,
We'll get an
somewhere,
enhanced risk
somewhere
someplace.
in there's going to be an enhanced risk. When you got those dew points at 70 and 75, there's no question. They're just playing it safe right now and just saying, all right, at least a marginal risk for something, and then we'll take it from there.
And we also have a marginal to slight risk in an east-west band across the southern plains and nosing up into northern Kansas, which I don't think is technically the southern plains. I think that may be technically the central plains, over into Missouri, Arkansas, and eastern Tennessee. Now we should look at WPC because they've done some updating too, with regards to excessive rainfall and the potential for flash flooding. Now this is tonight. A slight risk in the lower lakes, slight risk Missouri down into northeastern Oklahoma, southeastern Kansas, northwestern Arkansas. Slight to moderate risk, excuse me, for flash flooding in parts of Mississippi and Alabama, and also southeastern Arkansas and northeastern Louisiana. Now, for tomorrow, and this is to cover the period. Now, this covers tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. to 8 a.m. Friday. We now have a moderate risk for flash flooding in most of Vermont, and a slight risk that covers a good chunk of upstate New York, mainly north of 84, and also into New Hampshire. So that's a bit of a change. We also have a slight risk in the central Appalachians and then extending into southern Ohio and eastern Kentucky. Moderate risk, a small area in central Mississippi with this corresponding slight risk around that. And then when we look, this is again Thursday into Friday. Now let's look at Friday into Saturday because they've updated this one too, Joe. They've got now a slight risk of excessive rain and flash flooding. Easternmost Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Long Island, southeastern New York, up the Hudson Valley to north of Albany, all of Massachusetts, all of Connecticut and Rhode Island, all of Vermont and New Hampshire, and western Maine.
Yeah, that's the last thing that anybody needs. And in regard to the moderate on day 2, that's over Vermont. I mean, that's right over where Dennis and I go every summer to this place near Springfield, Vermont called Stellafane. And the way things have been going lately, I can't even. I hope Stellafane is still going to be there by next month when it's time for us to go up there, because this is ridiculous. All of that rain that is just pounding down on Vermont, crazy.
Yeah, and we do not need. It doesn't look like we're going to get a repeat performance. The upper air, in some ways, is the same as it was last Sunday. In other ways, there are some notable and important differences. There's an absence of a strengthening shortwave, which was the case last Sunday and Sunday night, which is why we had all that rain that just blossomed out. This is the famous upper low, and I'll just bring it back to last Sunday. And you see the thing is just sort of keeps spinning there around Hudson Bay. It drops southward, then it goes back up northward, then it's just going to drop southward again here as we go through Friday. But it doesn't make much eastward progress this weekend. It's just sort of this broad bowl southwest flow pattern in the east, and there's embedded little weak short waves in that southwest flow, but there's nothing like it was last week where we had this really distinct V-shaped trough that eventually wound up forming a cutoff low in western New York. So that didn't, that wasn't a good thing to have happen. So this is a little more benign, but nonetheless, it still is one where we have to contend with the possibility for some downpours and thunderstorms and heavy rains. Finally, that upper low is going to move into eastern Canada early next week and go away. But guess what? Here comes the next one. For later next week that drops right into the eastern part of the United States. And this is day 10. This is really a ridiculous looking upper air for this would be July 22nd. I mean, you've got a flow from Canada here that is in play. And it just continues. These troughs just want to keep dropping into the eastern part of the United States, ridge out in the west, cut off low in the Gulf of Alaska, uh, southeast of the Aleutians. It's a wonderful setup for the wintertime.
Well, but by the time we get to the winter, we probably have used this pattern up, and it'll transition to something else, right?
Yes, more than well. Uh, unless it's going to be a year like 2010 or 2009, 2010 or 2010, 2011, where this sort of pattern persisted through both of those summers and continued right into the winter months. It did not go away. And the GFS, by the way, is probably not much different. Um, it's about the same through day 10 on the European. Then it just kind of tries to lose just still has troughing in the east. It's just weaker in the long range period. That's the 18Z though. I'd rather look at the 12Z for the long range. And yeah, I mean even the 12Z looks like it tries to flatten out the trough in the east a little bit, but there's still, and this is another thing. If you look on the GFS, it keeps wanting to make this mega trough in the Ohio Valley in about 11 days. We're dropping a cutoff low there and having a south-southwest flow along the eastern seaboard. This is not something you want to see if there's a tropical system offshore, which right now there's no indication that there would be. But let's not have that happen when we get into the month of August. So pretty much the pattern stays the same, at least for the next 10 or 12 days. Maybe after that it starts to relax a little bit. So in the meantime, we've got to deal with whatever wet weather is going to be delivered to us. So I'll bring up the GFS radar and let's roll it back. I will say, Joe, by the way, back to last week and going into last Sunday, the short range models were horrible. The ultra short range models for that Sunday event were terrible. They hardly showed any rain.
Yeah, as I said, maybe yesterday or the day before. I mean, Renata and I had to go somewhere on Long Island on Saturday, and a full week before, we talked to all the people, all the participants in this, gathering of friends out in around the Melville, Huntington area. And a week before, we said, the long range models are suggesting something really, really nasty with maybe more than just a few showers, maybe some heavy rain. And at the time, it looked like it was going to be Saturday. Well, eventually, it turned out that it was not Saturday. It turned out to be Sunday. We did go on Saturday, and we just a couple of brief showers. It turned out to be Sunday. But again, long range, yeah, it looked great. But we as we closed in on Sunday, I mean, I got to tell you, you're absolutely right, Joe. There was nothing really that suggested that we were going to have the Armageddon in terms of tremendous rainfall. Although we did on Sunday say that, although
we did on Thursday last week say that it was that we were going to get a soaking rain, a big rain on Sunday.
Yeah, but we said on Sunday we were telling people, all right, some models say 2 to 4 inches or 2 to 5 or whatever, but that easily could be because of the convection and the high level of humidity. They said that could easily be twice that amount, which suggested, 4 to 10 inches. And sure enough, we saw that. It became evident, very evident, by about 4 or 5 o'clock on Sunday when the National Weather Service in New York City issued, only for the second time in its history, a flash flood emergency. Last time they did that was with Ida. And that was that first time that they issued that centered mostly on the immediate New York City area. This one that came on Sunday was, unfortunately for me, up in the Hudson Valley, and it was every bit of a 4 or 5 to 10 inch rainfall up here Sunday night into early Monday morning.
There's some timing differences with the GFS and the European. With regards to this, here's the front for late Thursday with showers and storms. Actually, it looks like it wants to bring them through during the nighttime hours, which doesn't happen often. It fires up a cluster of thunderstorms in Delaware down into eastern Virginia, and then there's some stuff off the coast of southeastern New England, but apparently nothing in between. I suspect that's probably not going to be the case. Saturday, not much happens, but you can see by late Saturday evening there's some showers and storms in Pennsylvania down into Virginia and North Carolina, and then they come through Saturday night into Sunday morning, and they really get enhanced up in northern New England again, but not so much in areas to the south. On the other hand, the European is slower, so it has a much it's got a different outcome here, and probably one that's much more bullish for rainfall. And that is, here's the tonight's of course all disappears, and then tomorrow afternoon there's some patchy shower and thunderstorm activity that pops up in New York State and Pennsylvania, also back down in Kentucky and Western Virginia, Western North Carolina. Uh, Friday, during the afternoon, you get some shower. Actually, even during the morning, you start to see a flare up of showers and storms. The frontal boundary on the European is stalled right along the coast. It has a much more active frontal boundary on Friday, which I think makes more sense than what the GFS has, and that plays in until into Friday night, goes out. Not a whole lot seems to happen on Saturday, but then you start to see this cluster of rain that comes across Kentucky and Tennessee and gradually spreads out over the East Coast during the day on Sunday. So Sunday, the Europeans got a much busier looking area of rain and thunderstorms from New England all the way down into the mid-Atlantic states before it finally pulls out on Monday. I think that, for me, we don't usually, it doesn't usually happen often that you get rain coming in at nighttime with a front and then, lasting into the morning hours and then gradually moving out of the way in the summertime. Usually they like to come through more later in the day. I think it makes much more sense. And there's been this tendency for fronts to want to just kind of hang out along the eastern seaboard. I mean, poor Sal Blandino, it's going to be probably have no hair left in his head if we're going to have another round of showers and thunderstorms. And God forbid that I should say that for the weekend. That makes it even 100 times worse. But what can I tell you, Sal? But anyway, I'm thinking.
Whatever happened to Mr. Reuben Fairchild?
Oh, who knows? He, he took his Reuben Fairchild Award and went away. And next week doesn't look really too bad until we get to Thursday, where there's some kind of vigorous system that moves across the lakes in the Northeast with some showers and storms there. By the way, we should point out that WPC on their updated rainfall forecast map for the next 7 days had all that purple from eastern North Carolina, eastern Virginia, and then up the coast. That's at least 1.5 inches. The darker purples that are in there are 1.75 to 2 inches. And then you start to get into the reds in Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, and into Maine. That's 2.5 to 3 inches. And I think the same applies here with the convective nature of what's going on. There'll be a broad brush of 1.5 to 3 inches from south to north, but there are going to be some local areas that are going to wind up with possibly double those amounts.
Yep. Let's hope it doesn't happen to the people who got splattered, so to speak, this past weekend or on Monday up in New England. But unfortunately, we have no control over these things, do we?
No, and most of the areas east of the Mississippi are going to have issues with downpours and thunderstorms for the next 7 days. There's an extension of heavy rain from southern Illinois, western Kentucky that goes westward into eastern Kansas, and there's a big 2.5 to 3.5 inch area there right in the heart of Missouri. So that's another area of concern. And in Mississippi and into southern Alabama, all of this was really kind of highlighted by WPC in those excessive flood maps that we showed you just a little while ago. I don't think there's anything. Well, let me just check real quick off screen. If there's something worth showing, I'll put it up. The Hurricane Center. Okay, so we still have a 60 and 60% chance in 48 hours and 7 days for a low in the central Atlantic. All right, that may become a tropical depression or a tropical storm or a subtropical storm or some, you know,
And
some.
in the Pacific, we have Calvin.
Calvin is a tropical storm in the Pacific. That is correct. Forecast to become a hurricane tonight. And it's out pretty much in the middle of nowhere. And there's the forecast map for Calvin as it moves west to west northwest for the next several days. Once it gets west of 130 west and north of 15 degrees north, it starts to weaken, and eventually it just degenerates into one of those fabulous remnant lows that the Pacific storms often degenerate into. Isn't that special?
Yes.
So you've got Briller Jeopardy. So let's roll through it because I am exhausted. I got no sleep last night. Oh, you can't bring it up.
I can't bring it. If I could try, but if I do, I might accidentally cut. It's a different system with me. I'm working off of a laptop. I'm not working off of a PC where I can have multiple windows that I can
Well, if
open.
we lose you, we'll hear your voice, correct?
I'm not sure. Let me see if I can get. Let me see what I can do here. And now I'm playing.
All right, folks. This could be, Joe could push a button that could send us all into outer space here. So, to our doom.
Okay, here we go. Joe Rayo, Facebook. Oh my goodness, what the heck is this?
What is it?
I mean, I'm seeing the most arcane type of fonts and whatever. I can't even find my picture here. I'm going to try this one more time.
All right.
Hang on. I'm using Safari to get to this.
Oh, so are you on an Apple? A Mac?
Yeah, this is a Mac. Yeah, it's
you're on
a Mac.
Mac, yeah. Tom Contino would be happy to hear that you're using a Mac.
I don't think this is going to work, Joe.
All right. So you know what? We'll save it for now. Tomorrow, are you going to be upstairs or downstairs?
I'm still going to be up here.
All right.
We're planning on Friday to have the grand repositioning of everything.
Okay.
Put everything back, pull the rugs back to where they were, and put everything back to where they're supposed to be.
Oh wait, hold on. I have breaking news here. Just a second. Mr. Briller just sent me Briller Jeopardy, so we could do it anyway. So are you ready, everybody? We're still doing average high temperatures in the month of July for the following cities. Are you ready, Mr. Rayo?
Sure.
Jacksonville, Florida. Average high temperature, Jacksonville, Florida, for the month of July.
I'll say 90.
You'll say 90. Okay. Joe Rayo says 90. Let's see. Christina Pedia and Chuck Cardillo both say 88. Michael McGuire says 91. Helen Bertona says 96. Johnny Quest and John Melander both say 91, but Michael Azera is the first one to get it on the chat board. 93. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's incorrect. 93 is too high. Nobody's gotten it yet.
Latex Stream says 886.
Yes, well, he's up in Spaceland there. William Uber hits it with 92. 92. Las Vegas, Nevada.
102.
102 is not the correct answer. 102 is not the correct answer. So Chuck Cardillo says 101. So does Spacey 11. But Frank Scalera has just nailed it right away, and so has Michael Azera. At 105. 105. The next one, you ready?
Yes.
Los Angeles. This is always tough because, there's Los Angeles, there's West Los Angeles is basically on the Pacific, and then there's East Los Angeles, which is Burbank and all those places, and they burn up. But Los Angeles, I guess, as measured by the Los Angeles International Airport.
Lax. I'm not going to be too lax about this. I'll say 88 degrees.
You'll say 88, and that is incorrect. Latex Dreams says 84. Michael McGuire says 85. Norm Roberts 90. Carol DeCara 96. Phil says 86. My buddy Phil, he's on the chat board. Puts a smile on my face. Northern Grace, Chuck Cardillo, Frank Scalera, all very close at 83, but Patrick Darcy nails it, and so does Miss Fallerite and William Uber, 82, and 82 is for LA. Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis, Tennessee.
I will say Memphis, I will say 89.
Memphis, you will say 89. You would be incorrect. Incorrect. Michael McGuire says 90. Leon Probitsky 85. Maggie P 90. Phil says 91. And Northern Grace says 90. Patrick Darcy's at 98. And William Uber and Frank R. and Michael Azera and Miss Fallerite all nailing Memphis Joe at 92. 92. And last from not least, the great city of Minneapolis in the great state of Minnesota.
Oh, well, I can see Mary Richards' face on this forecast. I can see Ted Baxter, too. And Gordy the Weatherman.
Yes, and Sue Ann Nivens.
And Sue Ann Nivens. How about for Minneapolis, 83 degrees?
And 83 is the correct answer. You waited to the last one to hit it on the nose. 83 is the correct answer for Minneapolis. And that's it. That's our 5 cities tonight. So here you go. I got no sleep last night. I think I didn't fall asleep till after 2:30 in the morning, and then I woke up at 5:45. So I wound up taking 2 naps on the couch. And then somehow, I don't know how I did it, but I managed to gather just enough strength to run down to Home Depot and pick up 20 bags of topsoil to try to finish up my landscaping, which I still have a ways to go yet. But that's what I did this afternoon. And then I took a hot shower and had a little dinner, and I am absolutely exhausted. So I am headed to bed.
Well, go to bed. I have not had dinner yet for a number of different reasons, which I will not get into. So
okay. Well, on that note, then let us remind everybody then that the Joe and Joe Weather Show is not brought to you by Whole Paycheck Foods, but Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system, and you can join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. If you use the referral link, make sure to purchase something. Make sure you use the coupon code Joe and Joe Weather Show because if you do, you will get
10% off.
And Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon is your go-to place as we get closer and closer to hurricane season prime time. Make sure that you have everything you need just in case we wind up getting a tropical storm or a hurricane. 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town. They're at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon in Suffolk County on Long Island. The website is
omnitruevalue.com. And I don't understand why Latex Dreams is saying Renato will punish you. I always look forward to whatever Renato makes for dinner, and I especially am looking forward to tonight. I believe we're going to have shrimp and rice. So,
okay.
Looking forward to that.
I've done it a few times the last couple of weeks where I made fettuccine, garlic fettuccine with shrimp.
Okay.
And mushrooms, shrimp and mushrooms. So, all right, I ate already. So I had I just had some leftover beef ribs in a sandwich, and that was my dinner. So we will see you tomorrow at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. Nighty night, everybody.
Okay, nighty night, folks.